Let's pick up where we just chatted with Peter for a
Please.
moment, and I know we just had a conversation with him. And again, we thank Peter for his time. Thoughtful, insightful, honest, knows exactly what he's inheriting. And to your point earlier, this is a lot of what he's done the last 15 years over on the West Coast in Tampa Bay.
And this happened quick, Kyle. I mean, this was a deal
Weekend?
that happened quick.
Yeah,
I mean, that is crazy.
That's crazy.
So yeah, I mean, authentic, very well spoken. He's been there before. He's done it in a similar situation. I'm super thrilled to have him in Miami and to see what he does with the roster again that just got to the playoffs in 2023. But there's still some work to be done. Actually, a lot to be done here, and I don't know where we want to start. The good news is Josh Bell just opted in. Massive news for Miami on and off the field. We want to start with the
let's do Peter's job for him. No, here's where we'll start.
Okay,
it's fair to start. We'll start in the corner with Josh Bell. We'll talk about him in a moment.
Okay.
You assume, obviously, he's opted back in. Now, the question is he going to play first? Is he going to DH? He's probably going to do a little bit of both. You know you're set at second base with Luis Arraez. You know you're set at third with Jake Berger.
Yep.
Now, the question is, do they feel as if they're comfortable in the outfield with De La Cruz and Sanchez and Chisholm? Is that good enough over the long haul in the big leagues? Now, before we talk about Josh Bell, there's obviously some needs. And throughout the course of last season, it became apparent that the Marlins were going to be in need of a catcher and a shortstop.
Yep.
You know, we're not going to sit here and speculate a whole lot. There's some interesting names out there, but I think we would both agree that right now a priority for them in the offseason is what they do behind the plate, the captain, and what they do at shortstop. So I think that's going to be interesting. You know, there's a guy like Tim Anderson out there. You know, is that a fit in Miami? Could Jake Berger speak on his behalf? Obviously, they were in Chicago together. You know, what does Miami do behind the plate?
And how do they do it? Because I know you wanted to talk about this with Texas, a team that really relied on the long ball and in an era where that's really what it's about. And the Marlins kind of went opposite. They went contact. They got a guy in Luis Arraez that, of course, ended up panning out, another batting champion title for him. But how do you think, or how will the Marlins construct this roster as far as philosophy?
Well, here's the Jekyll and Hyde part of this to me. Their plan, if you go back 2 years ago, it was unwatchable. They couldn't stop striking out. They could not win games.
Because they went all in on power and
Correct.
wanted to win with the long ball.
Now, okay, they break it down to last year. We're going to put the ball in play. We're going to make other teams make mistakes. We're going to put the ball in play. If you don't put the ball in play, you're not going to win games.
Sure.
So it proved to work over the course of a very long season that putting the ball in play, making contact can win you games. Right, when they were getting blown out, and there was so much speculation about the run differential, and I understand the worst in Major League history to go to the postseason. The flip side of this, to me, it is very apparent that if you get to the postseason, you are not going to win without hitting homers. We saw it firsthand in Philadelphia.
Yes, we did.
Okay?
Yep.
The Phillies just saw that at the hands of the Arizona Diamondbacks, and the Diamondbacks and the Rangers just slugged it out. The Texas Rangers just won the World Series on the long ball. They pitched well, but when you get to the postseason, you have to hit the ball out of the ballpark.
Yes.
Now, Miami loses that in Jorge Soler. Josh Bell opts in. He was fabulous. Jake Berger and Bell, a full season. Chisholm, he's got to stay healthy. De La Cruz, Sanchez. The power is there. Can they get it out of everybody? Can they first get themselves back? When you get there, to me, you have to hit homers. It's very hard come playoff time. And again, we saw this firsthand with Wheeler and Nola.
Yep.
It's hard to string 4 hits together an inning in that pressure cooker of an environment. You have to hit the ball out of the yard.
100% right, because that's exactly what happened with Philadelphia. With Wheeler and Nola, it felt like you needed to hit 4 singles at times to just score a run. I mean, even though the only run that they got was a fielder's choice, right? Or was it an infield single by De La Cruz?
And how was Philadelphia beating the Marlins?
Right, with the long ball, Bryson Stott and just kind of pummeling the ball around.
Correct.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I want to add on this too, with as far as the philosophy. And I was all in on the contact and putting the ball in play, but the consequence for Miami this year was the double play ball. They rolled into 159
Comes with the territory
of them, absolutely. But you also have to have the roster.
Correct.
You have to have the guys that are comfortable doing that tailor the game after that. So that's where, again, it's so interesting to me that you're going to get a guy. I know I keep saying this, Kyle, but you are getting a guy that comes into a situation. They just won 84 games. They just got to the postseason. They've got a great manager, and you really have a lot to build on in 2024.
Well, this is not a finished product.
No.
I am very comfortable where they are at as an offense. I think Josh Bell opting back in, and by the way, a massive piece of Josh Bell opting back in my opinion, is the way he connected with Brant Brown.
Absolutely.
Those two lunatics for a 6:40 game are there at 9 a.m.
I know,
but. I mean, I remember Skip talking multiple times. He would walk in at noon for a 6:40 game, and there's Bell working out. Right, but those, and I say that in the kindest of ways, they really meshed well. And I have not talked to Josh, I have not talked to Brant Brown, but having an understanding of their connection immediately upon his arrival to Miami, my guess is Brant Brown had a massive part, because Josh Bell probably could have opted out, probably got himself maybe a 2-year, $30 million deal.
Yeah.
Now, that's the offensive side of things. And we got a couple of minutes because we're running out of time. We got 11 minutes left tonight. The pitching side of things is interesting.
Very.
For better or for worse, the Miami Marlins ran out of starting pitching down the stretch. Right, Sandy Alcantara gets hurt, and you don't expect that. And things do happen. You have the limitations with Yuri, which is totally understandable. That kid was unbelievable this season. But do the Marlins, going into spring training, will they have enough depth? And my guess, you don't neglect that. I'm sure they will. But how many starting pitchers is it going to take next season, and the quality of those starting pitchers? Because it's very difficult, as we saw, to be using bullpen games down the stretch, especially against the postseason.
Kyle, it's remarkable to actually think about how the Marlins got in late in this season. I mean, they were literally rolling out 3 guys: Jesus Luzardo, Braxton Garrett. Because remember, Yuri went to the IL.
Right.
And Edward Cabrera,
who got optioned down, remember? I mean, he was optioned to the minor leagues.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It is crazy. They were mixing and matching. I know Johnny Cueto threw some innings. He got moved to the bullpen. Brian Hoeing did some spot starts. JT Shagwell, how many times did he open up last year? And you could speak better than I can on this, but, a guy like Max Meyer. I mean, this is probably a big year for him to come up and have a huge opportunity with Sandy out and some spots to fill in that starting rotation.
We saw him 2 years ago, and this is a young man coming out of Minnesota, some drafts back, who's at the top of the organization food chain in terms of prospects, with an electric fastball and a wipeout slider. He's coming off Tommy John surgery. The one thing you have to keep in mind with this whole thing is going into next season, there will continue to be limitations on young guys. Max Meyer may start the season in the rotation. He's not making 32 starts and pitching 200 innings. Yuri Perez is going to start this season. I don't know if he's the opening day starter or he pitches game 2, 3, 4, or 5.
Sure.
But he will have limitations. He's not making 32 starts and throwing 200-plus innings. That will be something that the Marlins will have to counter with to make sure that not only they have the depth that is required, but if they are in the hunt and they're in a position to get back where they want to be, that they're really comfortable with what's coming up to help them. So there is so much to talk about. There is so much to get into. The good news is, maybe the bad news for some of you, Steve and I will be back next Tuesday, and we'll be back with you every single Tuesday moving forward. We've got about 9 more minutes on the Marlins Hot Stove Show tonight. We're going to take one final break. When we come back, I don't know what we're going to talk about. We'll see.